with Texas Country Today podcast. I'm here with my good buddy and partner, Dusty Moats. Dusty, how you doing today?
Man, I am fabulous, but don't tell anybody. Somebody will ruin it.
Yeah, I'm sure. Well, we've got a fantastic guest with us, Taylor Sweely. But before we jump into talking with her, I wanted to thank our wonderful sponsors who we could not do anything without, our Watson Boots, making some of the most fantastic boots out there right now. Texas Select Beverage Company, creating non-alcoholic beverages, beers, teas, lemonades, all that good stuff. And if you ask Dusty, the root beer is probably one of the best ones out there right now. Then, of course, we've got Sharp's Supply Leather Company. Josh Sharp creating all the fancy guitar straps that you see Josh Ward and Dusty Moats and a bunch of other people wearing. And then, of course, smithmusic.com, the pioneers in music marketing and music distribution, not to mention founded by Rick Smith, the original idea maker of the Live at Billy Bob's album. So with that being said, Taylor, how you doing today?
I'm doing good, y'all. Thanks for having me.
Well, cool. Well, you're pretty new to the scene. So
I'm very new.
Tell everybody about you. Like, just give us a little quick rundown who you are and where you're from and all that good stuff.
Well, how I like to start my shows off is I'm a Jesus-loving firefighter's wife and a mama who's chasing a dream called country music. So that's my intro. That's me. I'm just a stay-at-home mom that's trying to make it in the country music industry.
I gotcha. Well, so are you originally from the Dallas-Fort Worth area, or what? Tell us about.
I'm not.
Okay.
I grew up in Georgia. I always claim Georgia. I'm a Georgia girl. We moved here when I was 15. My dad's job moved us here halfway through freshman year of high school. So that was not fun. But ultimately I came to Texas and been here ever since. So it's been about 15 years now. And lots happened since then, but happy to be a Texan now.
Right. Well, Dusty, I'm sure you guys were talking before we even hit the record button. So,
well, Brian, I'm notorious for being the overtalker, so I'm just trying to be polite and sit here. I'm just kidding. So, dude, I first off, man, your single's amazing, and I know we kind of talked a little bit. I know we talked a little bit about what we're going to cover. I think you recorded it at one of kind of the renowned studios in Texas. There's multiple that are amazing, but you were at Panhandle. It was with Taylor, right? It was Taylor.
It was.
Taylor. Yeah. So tell me a little bit about that experience, with you having only one single out, not really doing something ever. Tell me how that was going in there and working with a studio of that caliber.
Oh my gosh, it was so cool. And how it all happened was so organic. And while Taylor was there, he was actually the mix engineer that day. So he wasn't actually my producer. My producer was Nick Lee. He's very well known in the industry. He's a guitarist. He's actually Ryan Bingham's lead guitarist right now. But I met him when I was looking for a guitarist for a show, and we kind of hit it off. And he's like, hey, if you ever need anybody to produce your stuff, let me know. And so I was like, well, I actually have been working on one song. It's the first song I've ever written. I don't really know what I'm doing, but I made a voice memo. Do you want to hear it? And so he listened to it and he's like, yeah, let's go in the studio and cut it. So that was literally all I gave him, was just a voice memo. We went into that recording studio. He had it already figured out how he wanted it to sound musically. And the band was there already. They did their thing. And then it just came to life, and it was the coolest thing. And I remember saying, okay, I'm ready to do 10 more songs now.
Well, it's funny how that works, right?
Love it.
So out of that, so you just talked about a really gigantic, huge experience. If you were to tell me your favorite, and the reason why I ask this is because we all have things that we like about doing this, right?
Yeah.
Out of all that big conglomeration of stuff that you talked about, what did you like the most about that whole thing? What was your favorite part of it?
I think just the recognition of, okay, I can write a song by myself. I never grew up thinking that that was going to be in my wheelhouse at all, never tried. And I was actually begging other people to help me write it because I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. Surely this is not good. Like, can someone help me? And everybody was like, no, you don't need it. It's good as is. So I think that's what I really took away was like, okay, well, now I need to be writing all the time now.
Well, lyrically, it's got a clever hook. With "Wine Not" is actually a clever hook. There's some. I'm a huge fan of '90s country music when dude hooks were like galore, right? So
Yep.
every song had something that was kind of a hook, and so it's what I love about what your producer did with it. You took a kind of a '90s style writing and modernized it to some extent, but it's still country. A lot of times,
Absolutely.
what you see is producers taking it really overboard a little bit and trying to modernize it to the point where Texas really isn't Nashville, and I learn this more and more every day, right, with my interactions with charts and with radio stations, and so
Mm-hmm.
it is cool that you can find those things. You don't play guitar, do you?
I don't play anything. But that is something that I do want to commend my producer on was I told him 90s country is my style. That's what I'm wanting to bring back. And so he really did a great job of capturing that 90s country sound.
After being in the studio and having a producer, did you feel like there were some things that, and this is actually funny because while you're in the middle of the experience, you're bewildered, right? You're kind of
Oh, yeah.
watching this song come to life from the drums to the bass. Did you feel like at some point after it's all said and done, did you feel like you'd have some thoughts or inputs that you might have done something a little differently?
Well, I definitely still contacted him a lot afterwards. Like we went through several mixes and I was like, I don't like how this sounds. Let's fix this. And so I don't know if that's necessarily something I needed to do like in the actual studio, but I
Yeah.
definitely gave my input. And that is something I'm normally a people pleaser in my life, but with music, with my music, I can say what's on my mind. So,
Well, and so it's interesting. Everybody kind of looks at things differently, and I think the reason why I asked that question is I'm kind of weird, even though I've got years and a wealth of experience. My approach is you collectively, and that bunch of guys that I generally work with, there's 300 or 400 years of music experience, and what am I going to tell them um,
mhm.
that they can't figure out? Now, I'll throw some vibes down. Hey, man, something similar to this is what I heard. And then they come up with something. But some artists, and this is kind of where I was going, like direction, even though you don't play an instrument, you can hear or feel instrumentation in the way things go. Did you coach any in that circumstance? Hey, man, the intro needs to kind of feel like this, or what turnarounds look like. You know what I mean?
No, now that he did all on his own, and those were
That's
great.
awesome.
That's not
And
something
you
I
felt
could.
great about it, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
No critiques on that. My critiques were mostly like my own vocals, which we did that last. I don't know if that's normal, but I think we ended
That
up with
is
only.
normal.
It is okay. So we only ended up with like 30 or 40 minutes to cut those, and I think I sang it through like maybe 2 or 3 times, and that was about it. But I was like, "Are we sure? I don't need to do this more." So
Well, and so sometimes what they studios nowadays are doing what they call, I'm sure you heard this called vocal comping, right?
yep,
Where they go in and you'll sing through it multiple times and
uh
they
huh.
pick and they merge all those parts together that they found.
They did
The
that.
cool so here's something for you. You'll appreciate this. One of the reasons why they do that in studio is because, man, a lot of times it's a song you may not have played out live or you've never played before. And so
Mm-hmm.
you're wanting to get the best delivery. What I found with my own music, and you'll probably see this too, my delivery changes because as I
Mm-hmm.
become more comfortable with the song, how I see it or how I feel it. And the
Yep.
vocal comps, man, are cool. Only doing it 2 or 3 times and hearing the way that it came out, man, that's definitely a demonstration of talent.
Oh,
So
thank
I'm
you.
glad to see that was a cool experience too. Some people
Oh yeah.
anguish in the vocal booth, like
Oh,
anguish,
man, I
right?
love
And hey, I've experienced anguish. Like had allergy problems or been sick,
Oh,
and you can't cancel. And so you're just in there killing it. But so the fact that your first time was super smooth, I think that's conveyed in the record too. I think the record shows there's a lot of comfort that you can feel there.
thank you. I appreciate that.
For those that don't know already, the single that you guys have been talking about is Why Not? And that is one you wrote yourself, as you were
Yeah.
just saying, and you didn't think it was good. I think it's a wonderful, wonderful track. I like the feel of it. Um, and kind of along that lines of the recording thing. So I don't have that perspective of going into the studio as a artist because that's not what I am. I
Mhm.
I get to go into a studio and I get to see the behind the scenes stuff and see artists do their thing. Um, and to see you say that you were comfortable with that, that's something I wouldn't be comfortable with. I Dusty, I've sent Dusty some of my horrible like recordings of things that I've done, and I can't even sing with headphones on because I can't stand to hear my own voice feedback into my ears. So, what was that like? Because I don't know if you've ever sung with like with headphones on, things like that. And obviously, in a studio, there's not a lot of delay in between that. But what was that like?
Yeah, that was different. I had to ask how to even put them on, if that's something, 'cause that was a new thing. But they had me just keep one ear off and
Mhm.
then one on. So it was fine for me. I didn't really
I
think
gotcha.
anything of it.
Kind of to rewind a little bit here. At age 15, you moved to Texas. Had
Hmm.
you already been playing or singing music then, or how did the whole music career start?
Well, career wise, that didn't start until a little later in my life, but singing has just been me. That's been a part of my life since I was two, I think. My mom took me to a kinder music class, and it's like a little mommy and me thing. And I actually, full circle, take my daughter to that class now. And so she wrote in my baby book actually that they went around and had all the babies like sing this certain part. And when they got to me, I did it on pitch, and all the moms were just like, oh my gosh. And so she wrote in my baby book that day that I would be a singer. And that just stayed with me. I performed for them my whole life. We would video, send it to my grandparents, then eventually would sing in church. I did a couple Christmas musicals, and then our pastor in Georgia actually asked if I would be on the praise team as a 12-year-old kid, and that had never been done before. It was just an adults only 4-person praise team, and so that really touched me that my pastor had like seen something in me to ask me to do such a thing. So I think from that moment on, I was just like, I think this is my calling, and so I just never stopped.
Sure.
But as
Well,
far as like career wise goes, I was probably 21, 22 when I started to gig around Texas. And when I say gig, it's just like little openings here and there. And I was just a cover artist at the time, but I got to open for some pretty cool Texas country artists. Daryl Dodd and Whiskey Myers. Whiskey Myers was my first before they were ever huge, but those were some cool things that I was like, oh, wow, well, this was cool. I want to do this for the rest of my life. And then I took the last 2 years off to stay home with our baby, and then wrote this song, and now I'm back out there.
So,
well,
what was the
cool.
deciding factor for you to actually jump back in and to jump in and record? You know, because man, it sounds like you're doing some cover music, but what made you to actively, decide to? Because this business is a cutthroat business. It's
It is.
interesting, and I mean, and I'll share this with you right now. Right now in Texas, there is more original music out to Texas radio than there ever has been in a
Yeah.
given 30-day period. We're talking like 40 or 50% more. So it's like almost double. And so there's lots of people that are diving into this marketplace. And I know you're more of a Nashville style artist. That was part of our conversation. But the reality is you're in Texas, so you're lumped in that
Yeah.
Texas. What
Right.
made you decide to jump into this?
Truly, I did not know. what we were really getting into. That kind of came as a shock after we recorded it. And then I figured out what all is going to take to get it out there and everything. But it's something that I've just known that I'm going to eventually record songs. Like I just knew that that was going to be part of my story. As far as like timing goes, I don't know. I feel like when I wrote that song, it just came from, I don't even know where, but I mean, it came from the situation that I'm in as a mom and as a wife and everything. But when I was showing people and I was hearing their response to it and how catchy they thought it was, then I was like, this is, why not? Why not?
Yeah.
Why not record it?
Well, and so, you know, it's interesting. What is your thought process and what are your thoughts about, you know, a lot of times, and this is just being candid, you know, a lot of times the challenge with Texas music artists, and this is myself included, is, man, we're not necessarily professional songwriters per se. We're great.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's some things we do, but you can really sometimes tell a difference between a Texas artist song and a song that was written by a staff writer in Nashville. We've had some great people on. You know, what's your take on recording other writers' songs? Because I see something in that. Yeah. I say, would that be offensive to you? Because, you know, with this being your only songs you really wrote, you know?
Not at all.
Think about it from that perspective.
I actually had reached out to, his name is Stone. I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but he's a very prevalent writer in Nashville. I reached out to him last year and he was willing to give me one of his songs. But then my mom got sick last year, which I'm sure we'll talk about. But so we kind of dropped the ball on that. But yeah, I'm happy to take songs from people or co-write. I'm like dying to co-write with people. I want to learn.
Well, we were laughing, and with that being said, even the Nashville writers, you know, ironically, we had a couple. I was with a couple guests. One was on this podcast, and one was on another, where we had Jamie Richards on ours, which is, man, was a staff writer for Curb, and man, hasn't had any big hits from. And I say big hits; he's had his own hits, but hadn't had any major artists record. And then the night before, Scott Shawn White, who's got 3 cuts on the brand new Cody Johnson album. So we were talking about perspectives, right? And how, you know, even those guys, you know, they write 100 songs and maybe 10 of them are worthy of recording. And one of the things you see with Texas artists in particular, they think they have to record everything. And we see that a lot. You know, that doesn't mean, you know, and so I think that we get artistry, you know, you can, a lot of the people that have been criticizing Jason Aldean for not writing his own song, try that in a small town. He's not technically an artist. But you see where I'm going. He's not an artist because he's singing somebody else's song, right? I guess George Strait, who's really only written 2 of his songs that have been released, he's not an artist either.
I guess not. Or Celine Dion. I don't think she writes.
None of them, dude. No. Whitney Houston. You know, Clive Davis. You know, she put her moniker right on I Want to Dance with Somebody.
Yeah.
Right. The mentality is really interesting. And not that I'm criticizing Texas songwriters. I talk about this with groups of artists all the time about how it's hard for people not to do their own work or even co-write. So your willingness to co-write is huge too. A lot of guys, they go, I just don't write well with anybody. Well, man, that means you're, and what we've seen, and Brian can attest, some of the, when artists kind of do co-write, their style evolves. Things change, right?
Yep.
Go ahead, Brian. I'm sorry.
No, that's right. I was just going to ask the writer you were talking about in Nashville. Is that Stone Aielli?
It is. Yes.
Okay. So Warner Chappell, and I'm guessing did you meet him when you were working with Whiskey Myers? Because that's the same people that Whiskey's with. So no.
No, I actually just cold messaged him on Instagram and was like, "Hey, I'm looking to get some songs for at the time I wanted to do an EP. So that's kind of how I pitched it. And I said, if you have a catalog, I'd love to check it out. You'll have to forgive me if this is not how you reach out, because it's probably not." But he responded and was like happy to. So sent me a song immediately, sent me to his, I guess, is it a publisher?
Well, yeah, it could be a host of a million different people, to be honest.
Well,
um,
if I'm not mistaken, he had a single, I think, with Kylie Frey. Kylie recorded one of
Yes,
his songs. Yeah.
yes. And Priscilla Block.
Yeah. Well,
So,
here's something crazy in your own backyard, Taylor. There are, there like I'm in a group of people that are networked down in Louisiana. Man, there's amazing songwriters that are staff writers that just live here, that make a trip
oh,
to
cool.
Nashville a couple times and get involved in this network. That's the cool thing. The other thing
Yeah.
that's really cool about that is if you're really interested in writing, a lot of these guys are so open to write with other people. They welcome those opportunities. So it's a great opportunity for you to write with
so
others.
and
Go ahead.
to kind of attest to that, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Dusty.
No.
I recently, not too long ago, went down to southwest of where I'm at. It was called the Somervell County Hootenanny at the Somervell County Expo. Anyways,
I love that word, hootenanny.
I know.
I know. But
That's
so
catchy.
at that show, I met for the first time Mark Manders and Thomas Michael Riley. Kyle Park was also there, and Aaron Watson was there, which Kyle Park and Aaron are great. But I actually had a chance to speak with Mark Manders, who lives up in Frisco area now, and
Oh,
he was big on the tour, and then he took, I think, about 10 years off, and he's getting back into it himself. But one of the cool things to kind of attest to songwriting, he used to host a songwriter circle in Dallas. And, Stoney lives right up the road from him. Stoney used to come down to it all the time. And there apparently used to be 30, 40, 50 people that would show up to these songwriting circles.
is it like
And
a songwriter round in
Yeah.
Nashville?
yeah,
Okay, I've been like needing to do that, but I only have the one song, so I got to write more.
so he has been trying to start one back up. I don't know what his plans are, but I would love to link you two up just to have that extra contact because you're over in Dallas.
Yeah, I'm close to him. I'm in Providence Village, so
Yeah.
that's super close. That'd be awesome.
With your songwriting, I heard you tell Dusty you don't play guitar or anything. So what's your songwriting process like?
Well, for that one, I just went upstairs to our balcony. I will say, do y'all know Cafe Anderson?
Yep.
So he's a good friend of mine, and we actually had a meeting last year. And during that meeting, he had thrown the name Why Not out there. And so it was actually his idea, that song. But I took it and ran with it. And the very next day, went up to our balcony, wrote it all in a day, and then just kind of looked at the lyrics and sung what I heard in my head.
Do you find it more challenging then? Not, because I write lyrics too, but I can't write music to it.
Yeah.
But I have guitars behind me because I'm trying to learn guitar so I can do that. Do you find yourself wanting to learn to play guitar or piano or anything like that?
I wish that I could play guitar. It would save me a lot of hassle because it's also hard to rely on a guitarist. I've had that issue several times for shows. So yeah, it would help me out, but I also love nails vainly enough, so I don't know that it'll be part of my story.
I got one word for you, and I can prove that you do not need to lose your nails.
Dolly Parton.
Dolly.
Yeah, I know.
Well, I think here's the other thing, and I'm gonna speak from an artist perspective. A lot of times, and this women have a really hard time in this industry anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that being able to play an instrument lends credibility to females as an artist. And I'm just being direct.
You're not the
it's
first
hard
person
because women are by far vocally probably more talented than men, and I say that affectionately. I love male voice, but women are just generally better singers. But what you see is, even Lainey Wilson plays guitar. She don't play it up there, but she plays. Miranda Lambert plays guitar. Dude, Morgan Wade plays guitar. I've just named 3 of the top people.
I know.
I think it's something that you really need to think about. And I think, and also I think, dude, it would make you really help you in the writing realm. Or hell, it could be piano. You can learn piano.
I will say, I grew up playing piano. I played that for 8 years. But come to find out towards the end of that 8 years, my teacher tells my mom, well, you know, she's not actually reading the music, right? She's just doing it by ear. So she's like, no.
Well, and I learning by ear is great. I read music now, but when I started playing, I couldn't read. It became a tool. So I'll share this with you. I talk with people all the time. They are tools to be, a professional musician. I get hired to play lead guitar in church. I learned 6 songs, walk in, play them. That wasn't something I used to do. It's evolving. And I think for you in particular, and really want to do some songs, you'd benefit tremendously. You personally, just fulfillment wise too, would benefit.
Totally.
That's the cool part about it. And I think for you, credibility, not that you don't have any, I'm just meaning it just, you sit down, hey man, I can play a G chord. What can you? I know Brian would be intimidated if you could play guitar right now.
So I better get me one.
One of the things that I talk to, I would say probably the majority of the artists I talk to are younger artists, new artists. And by younger artists, I mean young in their career. You know what I mean? Yeah. I have some young artists that are in their 60s. So, but one thing that I can take from the rest of my life before the Texas country music is it's the little things that successful people do that people that aren't successful don't do that makes all the difference in the world. And one of those things, if you look at the Lainey Wilsons and you look at the Morgan Wades and you look at, heck, the George Straits of the world, one of the things that they do to continually better themselves, it's not like they got to where they're at and then, okay, I made it. I just go play live shows and go to the studio. No, they have vocal coaches, they have guitar teachers, they have these extra people that push them. And Dusty has this too. And a lot of people may not know, but I went down to Rosewood Studio and Drew in the studio. It took him, a little bit of them going back and forth because he was doing some vocal cuts, but Drew's really good at pushing Dusty to say, no, that wasn't quite it. Try it again. Try it this way. Try it with this little bit of flip. And Dusty having that makes him an even better singer than he already is. He might have all the natural talent in the world, but having someone to help refine that makes all the difference.
Well, and that's the other piece. Well, that's the other piece too. And Brian's not wrong. Do you feel like, and you're so young into this, and I mean that affectionately. I wish that I wasn't this cantankerous, crotchety, old, gray-bearded curmudgeon in the music business, right? I've just lived through a lot. So and I say that affectionately. Do you feel like you have mentors in your life at this point? Musical mentors. And what I mean, and I'm going to be direct, that tell you if it's not good, that tell you, that help you, that will say, hey, man, you sound great, but man, maybe you should try it this way. Do you feel like you have that at this point?
I don't know. I mean, I would say maybe my producer was like that. When he was giving me some critiques, he's like, let's not do this, this, and this. Let's do this. Let's try that. And I do appreciate that because it can be hard to come up with all of that on your own anyways. And I want to hear it from fresh ears. So yeah, I'm always open to whoever wants to give me some feedback like that. And I have done vocal lessons one time. I did them a couple summers ago, and it was in preparation for an American Idol audition. And that was some of the best money well spent. I mean, I enjoyed every second of everything I learned, and I got to keep all of that too. Like got to keep all of the recordings of everything and my warm-ups and everything. So I would love to be able to do that again. It's just kind of a matter of, okay, well, everything costs money, and my husband's already ready for me to make back what we spent in the studio.
See, and that's another thing. So that's another thing. You and I, sidebar, our conversation was a lot about that.
Yeah.
The first conversation we had, and the sad part about it is that's where the years of preparation leading up. It's not blink. I'm going to record a song and I'm going to be a star. I wish that's how it was. And when I talk to you like on the front end, I know we were talking on the front end of this conversation. You've got kind of a win that you've got your TikTok established, but guess what? You still have to get out and play live shows.
Yeah.
And I think it was you. I was telling the story about a female artist that got famous. I think it was you that got famous due to TikTok, gets this festival gig, shows up, plays for 30 minutes and starts to walk off. And the promoter's like, whoa, 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 whoa. She didn't have enough material to play an hour set.
Oh, Lord.
So TikTok, while it's cool, it does not prepare you for the real world.
Definitely.
And the real world is I can go play for 10 hours straight. I have enough material to play for 10 hours. So, and that's covers and probably do longer. But I've been doing this for 30 years. And so a lot of these, think about that TikTok superstar stuff we were talking about on the front end. Mm-hmm. And like your husband's talking about, to make money, here's the other hard part, is that, the level of artists we are, nobody knows our music. Nobody. Mm-hmm. So if they're going to play it, majority of the time, any place you're going to play at any point, they're going to want to hear somebody else's music that they know.
Yeah.
And so,
and that's all I'll have right now still, since I only have that one original. It'll mostly just be covers.
Well, and you know what? You can make really good money to pay for your solo career doing that. So it's just, it just stinks, man, because it's really hard. I know. So do you feel like, I know our first conversation that we had, you were like, okay, this is interesting. Everybody's got their hand out, right? Mm-hmm. You and I had that conversation. Feel free to elaborate on what we're talking about. You recorded the single. What happened after that when you reached out to so-and-so? You don't have to name names. I think it's really, really important that people hear how this really goes.
Yeah. So I would say it's in the content curator realm is where I've had the most issues, so it's marketing. It's all of my digital marketing, everything that I needed as far as photography, videographers, all of that. I got connected to one guy and he basically totally blew us off, and he was a no-show 2 times. And I told him the first time, this cannot happen. I am a mom first and foremost, and it is not easy for me to take time, get her situated, and then drive all the way out to meet you just for you to cancel. So I was so upset by that. And then it happened a second time. And so then finally my producer was like, enough's enough. We're done with him. I had already paid him half up front. So lesson learned on that one. So it took us a little bit to get it back. We did. But then I found another guy, a Nashville guy who owns a content business yet again. And he's worked with some awesome people like Walker Hayes and Little Big Town and all that. We had an over the phone kind of deal where it was like, I'm available to you at any time. I'm running out this new program where it'll be like, I'm training you. I'll give you the resources that you need to post and give you a calendar and a timeline and all that kind of stuff. Well, then because it was nothing written down, then he decided to not be truthful. And when my husband spoke with him, he was just not truthful. And so we ended up losing our money on that, didn't get anything from it. So just learning the hard way on who you can trust and who you can't in this business has been eye-opening and discouraging at the same time, because it's like, man, I'm paying everybody. I'm paying you up front like you asked, and I'm doing my part, and they're just not following through. So.
Man, that's crazy. You haven't even really dove into the music business itself, and you're already dealing with it.
It's scaring me. I'm like,
well, and hey, listen, here's real truth, and this is, there are other artists that are gonna probably have similar experiences. Taylor, it's the crazy part about the business itself is that, man, there are people that are going to do that. It's like that in everything else. But because this is a dream and
Yeah.
this is something that, man, think about it from this perspective. In reality, there's what, 5, 6, 7 record labels in Nashville, and they have about 25 artists they represent. So you're looking out of the entire world, there's 220 people signed to a record deal.
Right.
And so they prey on that situation.
They
man,
overpromise and underdeliver.
Well, because we're wanting it so bad, right? We're wanting it so bad. And that's a lot of it. And there are great people in this business. And I think that's why creating a network is probably the biggest thing you can do, a network of people that you can trust. And it's so hard when you go into it cold. The other thing is, man, is you're talking about content. So you're not dealing with, you haven't played a whole lot of gigs, right? So you're dealing with people that you've kind of met, but you don't really know what kind of legs they have for sure. There hasn't been anybody you've known that's worked with them personally. It's just a tough deal, man. And remember, we were talking about by referral only. That's the reason why. That's the reason why. I want somebody that has had an experience with me that was worthy of somebody referring. And so, I'm sorry you're dealing with that. But hey, the one thing you can say, you had a badass experience with Panhandle, because some people even have horrible experiences with studios here.
Well, hey there, guys. Brian here with Texas Country Today Radio. And if you're watching this instead of listening, you're probably noticing I'm in a different shirt. And I'm here to tell you why. So, as you all know, if you've been editing videos or ever in the media industry, or even just deal with stuff at home, we all come across technological issues every once in a while. And this week's podcast was no exception. Our wonderful guest, Taylor Sweely, her phone that she was on just kind of cut out, even though we were able to see her and talk to her all the way through the end. It did not capture the video or the audio. And so this is kind of, unfortunately, where the podcast ends, which is unfortunate. We were nearing the end, but there was some really good stuff that was said right there at the very end. But Taylor, we're going to make it up to her some way, somehow. We'll have her as a future guest, or maybe we'll do an interview with her in the future. But this is kind of where the podcast ends. So I just do want to say thank you to our sponsors, R. Watson Boots, Texas Select Beverage Co., Sharps Supply Leather Co., and smithmusic.com. I don't know why that was so hard to get out. But anyways, I hope you all have a great day. And again, I'm sorry about the abrupt end to the podcast for episode 5. Keep an eye out next week. I think we have a double header coming up with Jarrett Reddick and David Wayne Baxter. I'm not sure how I'm going to put those out yet, but I think we have a double header next week. So anyway, stay tuned. Thanks for checking us out. Be sure to check out Texas Country Music News, as well as Texas Country Today Radio. You can download the Live 365 app, or just go to live365.com, search Texas Country Today. Be sure to add it as a favorite. We are streaming some of the hottest Texas country music out there right now. And if you are an artist and you'd like to add your music, go ahead and send it over to texascountrytoday@gmail.com. Till then, welcome to Texas Country, because that's my thing. That's what I like to say. And we'll talk to you guys later. Have a good one.